All right, guys, this is the final section of Asteroid Destroyer. Basically, all we're going to do here is we're going to add sound to our game and get the sound effects working, okay? So if you use the start file, which I put in the instructions, everything should have been loaded in already. So all these sound files, if you look at the sound folder, the sound file should already be in there, okay? So you should be good to go on that. Um, so the first thing we have to do is we actually have to add an audio object to our game so that the computer knows that we want to have audio in there. So it's the same way as adding a sprite or like how we added the keyboard. So if I just double click on a layout here, and we're going to type in audio to add an audio object. So go ahead and just add audio. Now the audio is like a keyboard. It's not a physical object you see, but it does appear in the object window here, showing that it's something we can use. You can see keyboard is here as well. So keyboards and audios, they're not like physical sprites that you see. It just says that on our event sheet now we can program using those things. Okay. So let's go ahead and go to ES Start. Okay. And we're going to start with an event here. So we're going to make an onStart of layout event for our start event sheet. So go ahead and do system onStart. And we're basically going to tell it to start playing the background music. So we're going to add an action. We're going to choose the audio option, and we're going to do play. Okay, and then we can choose the song, and it'll automatically generate the list based on what's been uploaded into the folder. So we're going to do background music. We do want it to loop. We want it to play over and over again. And for the volume, we're going to put 10. Okay. Now this volume number can be adjusted. If you feel like 10 is too loud, you can lower it. Some people do get confused by this because most of the time we leave the volume at 0. And people think that 0 means it's like muted, like there's no volume. All 0 means is that it's at like the standard volume that it's at. So when we're changing the volume 10, we're actually making it like 10 louder than what the standard normal volume is. Okay. So it's a way that you can make certain sounds louder or softer. So volume 0 basically means it's whatever the base volume of the computer is set to. And then 10 means that it's a little bit louder. So we're saying we want the background music to maybe be a little bit louder than other sounds we use in our game that we're going to have at 0. But if you don't like this at 10, you can change it. Okay, so I'm not going to look at grade this and see that this is specifically volume 10. That's not that important to me. It's more important that you understand what it means and that you change it if you want to change it. Okay, so we did that. Now we're going to go to ES Game, and we're going to add a global variable to our ES Game. So we are going to right click. We're going to add a global variable called sound. And we're going to make the initial value of it equal 1. Okay. Now, the purpose of making the sound variable, they don't really explain it, I think, too well in the written presentation because we don't really utilize it. Like, we use it in the code, but we don't really, like, the way that they have it coded, there really isn't a need for this at all because they just have it so you're always playing the sound. But where this is useful is basically when we do our events for the sound, we're going to add a condition to all of them that the sound variable has to equal 1. So we could potentially on like our intro screen, we could give the player the option to turn the sound on or off. And basically by toggling this variable between 0 and 1, we can turn the entire sound in the game on or off. So that's something we could kind of do as like a bonus to like test it out. And maybe I'll record a separate video on that. We'll see. But if you're curious about how to utilize that a little bit more, let me know. All right. So what we're going to do is we want to now go into the spaceship movement. And we want to look at the events where we're like doing the thrusters and the brakes, and we have sound effects for the thrusters and brakes. So we're going to go to this event here that says up arrow is down, where we're accelerating. Okay. Now here's the issue. When we're holding the up arrow down, that's kind of like in every tick. As long as we're holding that up arrow down, it's going to constantly trigger. So if I just add an action here to play a sound effect, it's going to like repeat the sound effect infinitely, like super, super fast. And it's going to sound terrible. So we don't want that. So we only want it to play one time. So rather than just putting the action here, we're actually going to put a sub event onto this. So on your up arrow is down, you're going to right click. You're going to add a sub event. And we're going to do a system, and it's called trigger once. We want this trigger once while true. So that way, the moment we press the up arrow down, it will trigger one time, but it's not going to continually loop as long as we're holding that arrow down. Okay. So on this trigger once now, we're going to add an action. We're going to do audio. We're going to play. And we're going to play the jet loop. Okay. Now the other thing we're going to do, we can we can leave the volume at 0 for this. We can have it not looping, but we do want to put a tag on this. And so a tag, you'll notice it gives you the quotation marks for a string. So we can type whatever we want here. So we want to type something that makes sense. So we're going to make a tag called thrust. Now, the reason why tagging your sounds is important is because you need a way to control specific sounds. So for example, if I'm playing jet loop and we're going to use the jet loop sound for the brakes and the thrusters, right? If I have an instance in my code where I just want to stop playing the thrusters, I need to refer to it by the tag. Because if I just say stop playing jet loop, it's going to stop playing any jet loop, even if I don't want it to. So by giving your audio file a tag, basically it's tagging it to this specific event. So this instance of jet loop is called thrust. So if I want this instance of jet loop to stop, I can now refer to thrust and it knows which one to stop. So that way you have to be specific to the computer, because if I just say stop jet loop, it's not going to do a specific event. It's just going to stop any jet loop that's playing. So hopefully that kind of makes sense. Okay. The other thing is we're going to add a condition onto this. So onto this trigger once, right click out here where my cursor is. We're going to add another condition, and we're going to do system compare variable, and we're going to say that sound has to equal 1. So basically this is going to kind of be a running theme. Anytime that we play a sound, we want to have the sound equals 1 as a condition with it. Okay. So actually I could go back to my ES start really quick. So we made this before we made the sound variable, so we could add that condition onto here as well. So I'm going to add another condition, system, compare variable, and we're going to have to say that sound equals 1 here also, so that we have that condition on there as well. Okay. All right, so let's go back to our ES game. We're going to do this exact same event here. This one here, this trigger once, sound equals 1. We also want this to be on the down arrows down because we're going to use it for the thrusters. So what I recommend is just hold control and drag it down, and you have to tuck it in like that. Okay, if that's kind of tricky for you, you could just right click and copy it. And if you right click the down arrow is down, you can paste it and it will paste it in correctly. Oh, actually, it didn't paste it correctly. So yeah, if you do it that way, you're going to have to manually drag it, but you have to move your cursor over until that black arrow indents in. So it needs to be a sub event of that. So make sure you copy that in correctly so it looks like a sub event. It should be indented inward. If you're having trouble copying it like that and moving it around and I'm not there to help you, you could just right click this down arrow is down and add a sub event and then just manually do it like we did the last one. So it's just a system trigger once, add a condition system, compare variable, sound equals 1. Okay, and then we're also going to play the jet loop here. So let me just double check here. Yep, and we have tag thrust. So all that is the same. Okay. Except we're going to change the tag here. So now this is actually braking, so we're going to change the tag to brake so that we can differentiate between the two. So this tag is going to be brake, okay, like that. So exactly the same, but we're changing the tag there. So I just double clicked it to edit it, okay? So then what we want to do is we want to go to the arrow released events, right? So if I go to up arrow released, I can add an action here for audio, and we can type in stop. And then it wants to know what tag do you want to stop. We want to stop thrust. And you have to type this in exactly the same way when you created the tag. So when you look at your code, make sure that thrust here looks exactly the same as thrust here. The casing has to be the same. So if like this one was lowercase and this was uppercase, it wouldn't work. So now we're saying when we hold the up arrow down, it's going to trigger the jet loop one time with the tag thrust. And then when we release the up arrow, it's going to stop the thrust. That way now, when we're stopping the sound, we're connecting it directly to this instance of it here. So it knows which one it's doing. So down arrow, same thing. So holding down, we're going to play the jet loop. So on down arrow release, we need to stop it. So I'm going to add an action on my down arrow released. And we're going to do audio stop. We're going to stop the break. Once again, type it in exact. Make sure that this break matches this break perfectly. Okay. All right. Now we have an explosion sound effect that we're going to make when we collide with the asteroid. So I'm going to go ahead and minimize the groups I'm not using. I think it's under asteroid handling or nope, spaceship handling. My bad. So go to spaceship handling. It's the only event in there. So spaceship on collision with asteroid. We're going to add a sub event to this. And then we are going to say system compare variable. We're going to say that sound is equal to 1. Okay. And then we're going to add an action, and we're going to do audio, and we're going to play, and we're going to play the explosion. And we're going to turn the volume to -15. Now, once again, this is just making it a little bit quieter because it is just naturally a louder sound effect. We don't want to blow up the player's ear. So we're going to turn it to -15. Once again, if you play it and you don't like that volume, you can edit it right here. This one, we don't need a tag on it because this is the only instance of explosion we're dealing with, so we don't have to worry about that. Now, the way we program this just gives me a reminder. We do have to change something back on ES start. So let's do that really quick. So when I added the sound here, we have to do this as a sub event. Just in case, well, actually the way it is right now, it's okay. So later on though, if we do add anything else to this on start, which I don't remember if we do or not, this is on the ES start, right? Yes. Right now, this is okay because this is the only action, but if we have another action that we just want to have on start, this sound is going to need to be a sub event. We're going to have to separate that. But right now, I guess it's okay. So just ignore that. We'll go back to where we were here. Okay, so we played explosion here. So now what we're going to do is we want to find the event where we die. So there should be an event, and it should be on the game over events down here at the bottom. So we have when my health is less than or equal to 0, we go to game over. We also want to stop playing all of the audio so that it's not just like running constantly. And we want to make sure that those audio events are before we go to the game over. So what we're going to do is we're going to add an action for audio, and we are going to stop. Okay. And we are going to stop thrust. And what we're going to do is after we do thrust, you can just type another set of quotation marks, and we can type the word break. And I think we can just type them next to each other like that, and it's going to see those as two separate tags. So we want to stop thrust and break, okay, just like that. And we want this event to be above the game over. So basically when we die, if we're pressing up, it's going to instantly kill those sound effects and then go to game over so that we're not hearing those as we move into the next layout. Okay. Now we have some asteroid kind of laser destruction effect type things that we're doing. So let's go into asteroid handling. Got a couple more sounds to put in. So we're going to go to the event that says pick all asteroid, this one right here. Okay. So this is where the specific asteroid will get destroyed after we shoot it. So we are going to actually make a sub event on this. So find this pick all asteroid, mine its event 22, right click out here, add a sub event, and then we are going to the sub event. It's going to be system compare variable. We need sound to equal 1. So sound equals 1. Okay, done. And then we're going to add an action. We're going to do audio. We're going to play. And we're going to play the SFX, the sound effects. So we're going to play SFX, and we can leave the rest of that as is. Okay, so we've got that there. And then what we're going to do is on the else. So this sound effect is kind of just like a little beep sound. Like it's like the sound of the asteroid shrinking. Like we shoot it and it shrinks. And then on the else, when we destroy the final asteroid, we're going to play like a laser fire sound effect to show that we're destroying it. So we are going to take basically this sound 1 event here. You can just copy this down. So if we just copy this right below the else like this, just make sure that it's sub-evented. So like it should be indented inward into this. Once again, if you're having trouble actually dragging it and sub-eventing it properly, just right-click on the else, add a sub-event, and type it in manually if that's easier for you. And then instead of playing sound effects, we're going to play the laser fire. And we don't need to change any other settings on that. Okay. So basically, we just did a few like asteroid destroying sound effects there. Okay. Then we're going to have like a victory sound kind of that we're going to say when you beat a wave. So we're going to go down to wave system. We're going to go to this asteroid count equals 0 because this is when you destroy the last asteroid and you would basically beat a wave. Okay. So we're going to add that trigger once down here. So what we're going to do is we're going to right click. We're going to add sub event. Sub event. We're going to do a system trigger once. Okay. And we're going to add a condition to make sure sound equals 1. Now I could specifically pull this if I wanted to copy it, but you could manually do it as well. But we want this to say trigger once and sound equals 1. So to grab the sound equals 1, I just highlighted it first. I held control and I dragged it down into there. Notice that I actually grabbed it by the middle here because I only wanted the condition. Normally when you're copying stuff, you want the whole event and you grab it by the left. But if I just want that condition, I grabbed it right there and you can see only the condition is highlighted. Then I held control and I dragged it down. But if that's confusing to you, just right click, add another condition and just type it in manually. Okay. So trigger once while sound equals 1. And then I'm going to add an action to this. And basically we're going to do add an action for audio, and we're going to play, and it's going to be the achievement, the new achievement sound effect. And we are actually, it sounds kind of weird, but we're going to give it the tag thrust. And the reason that we're going to give it the tag thrust is we had where we press enter. Let me go to this one here. Or we had that event earlier where we stopped playing the thrust and the break. And so we just want it so this new achievement would stop playing at the same time. So we're just giving it a tag that we in the code already stopped playing. So that's why we put the thrust on there. And that's basically it. So the whole game should be done at this point. You're going to want to test everything and make sure that it works. And then after you finish the game, there are going to be additional exercises. So maybe I will just briefly show you that really quick. So when you go into the Asteroid Destroyer game here, I'm going to edit this, okay? In the instructions, you don't see it right now, but I'm going to add the additional exercises right into this paragraph so that you can read it. But what you need to do when you finish a game is you need to go to the game file where you turn it in, which it'll be a yellow folder like this. Oh, I put it on here. Okay. So when you are done with the main game, you want to click on the actual assignment, which is this Asteroid Destroyer. And I'm going to edit this right now. I'm not going to make it say Friday on there anymore. It's just going to look like this, Asteroid Destroyer project with the yellow folder. I apologize. I'm kind of recording this video before we've gotten to this week yet, and I haven't actually like finished editing this stuff. But it's going to say Asteroid Destroyer, and then here it's going to have additional exercises. So you need to do these before you turn the game in. And so basically, it's going to ask you to edit things in your code to make sure you understand it. So I want you to read. So for the first one, I want you to read your code and make it so that 3 new asteroids are created when one is destroyed. So in your code, there's somewhere like when you shoot it, right now it's breaking off into 2 asteroids. Find the part in your code where that happens and make it so 3 pop up instead of 2. Okay. This one, make it so the speed that your ship goes, change it to 150. So find the part where you're making your ship move, and you should have an acceleration in there, and you want to change it to 150. Okay. I want you to make your own sprite called a power up, and I want you to try to invent your own power up. Okay. And then what I want you to do is actually implement it into the game and make the power up do something. So maybe you want to make it so that your gun shoots really fast, or you get a spread gun or a different type of gun. Or maybe you want a power up that gives you more health or something like that. Okay. Now I do have some bonus videos that will be there that I show all kinds of bonus things, and any of those could qualify as a power up. So I literally have videos on power ups. I have videos on how to make them spawn. I have a video on how to add a buddy ship that follows you around. Like any of that stuff would qualify. So if you do like any of the bonus videos, that could qualify for like exercise 3 and 4. So just make sure you let me know if you have any questions on that. Um, Once you finish the additional exercises, what you need to do is you need to actually turn in the game up here. So there'll be like a button in the upper right that says add or create. Click add or create. Click on your Asteroid Destroyer game from Google Drive. So you click add or create, then click Google Drive, then click your Asteroid Destroyer game. And then you'll click a turn in button here to actually attach it. After you attach your game, you need to go through these additional exercises. So this is a Google form that you fill out. It's just going to have a couple of quick multiple choice questions based on the game. And then you need to check off and mark which exercises you did. And be honest, if you didn't say do this exercise 4, just leave it unchecked, but it's going to affect your grade. But by checking this, that tells me that you did it. And then when I grade your game, I'm going to look and make sure that you did these so that you get the points on it. And then you click submit and you're good to go. So if you submit this and your game is attached, that's basically what you need to do. Now, if you submit this first before submitting your game, what's going to happen is the add or create button is going to be grayed out and you're not going to be able to add to it. So what you'd have to do is just unsubmit your project. You just click unsubmit. And that doesn't actually take away your form. Your form will still be there. You don't have to worry about that. So if you do the form first, just click unsubmit up here, then add or create, add the game in and turn in, and you're good to go. Okay. So once again, just let me know if you have questions, but that's it for Asteroid Destroyer.